this show on the road. So just for context, when I for the VOD later here, what I am doing, we are doing coverage over the VGC Draft League as usual. And at the first part of the season, I did an initial ranking of my group number five's like overall drafts. And just like from a surface level standpoint, I don't know any of the players, how they operate at that point. So just looking at the Pokemon that they picked and how strong I thought those were like on their own. Purpose of this stream, and guys, I'm looking at the chat, so this is very casual, gonna take our time. Feel free to interact. I don't mind. We'll upload this later, but purpose of this, we're gonna go over these again since we're 5 weeks finished so far. And obviously the standings themselves look much different from the ranks that I initially gave you guys. So you can see right here, initially I said Eltrim had the strongest draft based on the Pokemon that they picked, and TreeDolphin had number 8, which he wouldn't stop putting in my face that he's doing better than number 8 right now. Har har har. And as of week 5, or the end of week 5, we're still missing a match from TreeDolphin and Quaylectra, but generally this gives a view of what the standings are right now. So Ryu on top at the number 1 standing, and we did get updated rules on what tiebreakers look like. So even though Ryu and Darkbadger have the same record, it's at 4-1 each. They're going based off of head-to-head first for the tiebreaker, and Ryu did win versus Darkbadger. After that, they go based off of the win-loss record. So let's say that these two hadn't played against each other, or actually, am I tripping? Have they not played against each other yet? Hold on. Ryu and Darkbadger is the final week. Excuse me, my apologies. Jeez. All right, for the sake of conversation, let's pretend that they did play. And let's say that Ryu won because they're just a better player than Darkbadger. How about that? Then Ryu wins the head-to-head, and they snag the first place. Now, what's actually the case is that they haven't played yet, so there's no way to do the head-to-head. In which case, the tiebreaker is the win-loss record based on the number of games from each set. Just to help out with that view. Now I've already done the difference here, so Ryu has 1 more games. The gap between their amount of wins and their losses is greater than the gap between Darkbadger's wins and losses just within the set. So they take place number 1. You can see I'm over here on the bottom because I'm a bad player with a subpar draft in my opinion. But we'll get to that actually. So I'm actually gonna go in order of the number that we drafted, with the exception that even though I drafted first, I want to talk about my team last because screw you, it's my stream. And also there's a couple of things I just wanted to go over that might take a little bit more time. So, all right, let's start off with Eltrim, who drafted second. Am I correct in that? Yeah, that was Eltrim's team. So, last time I ranked this number 1 because this is series 1. So Dondozo Tatsugiri is a really centralizing part of the environment. So that just kind of like pushed it. I thought it would be at the top half, if nothing else, within the top 4, just based off of that alone, right? When you combine it with the rest of the the higher tier Pokemon, so you got Dondozo at tier 1, Sylveon, Talonflame at tier 2, and then Tatsugiri, and I would even consider Serena within this mix here in the tier 3. I felt like this was just a solid draft overall. Like, you set up Talonflame and Sylveon at the first half of the game. They hit really hard with the Hyper Voice pixelated, just doing AoE damage to everything. You get to outrun everything. You can go like fast Sylveon, Undertale, and like, yes, there are answers to that, but I thought it could be just a very strong opening, and anything that would threaten the Sylveon would would then like you can defend well with the Dondozo, just bring that in, and then Tatsugiri on the back end to shore that up. All right. Also, you have Espathra instead of Vivillon. Ooh, when did that happen? Actually, quite literally, when did that happen? Because I've been trying to keep the sheet up to date and been failing miserably. Today? Okay, okay. We'll just edit it while we go then. There's no biggie. Let's see. You have Espathra over Vivillon. Yeah, I haven't updated with recent trades. I just want to make sure I hadn't missed anything in the previous week because I did that once during a video and it's like, wait, I'm confused. When did they get Zoroark? You know. So you have Espathra. But yeah, just for the conversation, you know, remember that there was a Vivillon here, which I also thought was not the worst pick because it gives you access to a redirector. So if you need to adjust your strategy a little bit, you have that available to you. You can just like run it with Focus Sash maybe, and then you also have a Sleep Powder on your team. So just a way to disable things. Like overall, from Dondozo down to even Gothorita, I thought Gothorita was like a really good, valuable pickup. What this is, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This is a tier 4 pick, which I think is kind of insane. Like I think Gothorita as a tier 4 pick is kind of insane. But I think at the beginning of the format, Gothitelle is always like kind of underrated because nobody really knows what to do with it, how to take advantage of the shadow tag, especially when there aren't like a lot of options for Paris Song, right? So, but I think still, especially in a draft league where people's options are a lot more limited, you can trap people in some really sticky situations if they haven't prepped for it. Like in my eyes, like while I'm looking at the entire lineup, if I have to match up against this team, or when I did match up against this team, I was like, okay, I see Dondozo Tatsugiri over here. Like we can plan for that all day. We know all the ins and outs of how to deal with this thing. But this Gothorita over here, if I get stuck and my counter to Dondozo gets taken out, then like what do I do? I'm just stuck, right? So this is always just kind of on the back end of my mind. So everything from Dondozo to Gothorita just looked really solid to me. A lot of insane tier 4 is like the Primate that you picked up. Yeah, I think Primate's a little bit underrated, but yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that. Goth Mad underrated. Goth counter was just to Meowscarada 1-tap. True. Pretty much all you can really go for at that point. Anyway, so all that's just to say that that's mostly why I rated it so high. There's so much that Dondozo and Tatsugiri put on as far as pressure for any team that they always have to account for, that it's just really, I think that just automatically puts it in the top 4 of any draft, especially if you get both of these, right? Since they're separate tiers. And following that, you just have some really good Pokemon to go along with it. Again, Sylveon I think is really strong in a draft format here. Talonflame for speeding up the Sylveon to put the pressure on the opponents. And then if you're not really feeling, or it doesn't seem viable to go with like a hyper offensive route, defensive tools like the Serena, like the Gothorita, and even the Vivillon that we just traded out for the Espathra, I think we're honestly pretty solid. Gonna be honest, I'm not too worried about everything in the back end here, but that's the way that draft leagues go. The bottom tiers are just usually gonna sit on the bench for most of the time, unless you just pick up something really wild and valuable, like the Gothorita. I think the trouble that's been experienced through this team though is the game's transition. And what I mean by that, I think a really good example is what happened when they played TreeDolphin, actually. Which one was that? This one? Yeah. Like literally the first game. Can I just start in dark mode on the replay site? Yeah. Yeah, I think quite literally this is an example of where the issue lies. So we see the Talonflame Sylveon League, like we just mentioned, right? Like that seems like it could be something, you know, potentially strong. So now this was a little bit of disrespect here. Going for a Palafin. I kind of understand, because like you just expect Palafin to hard swap out, but they can kind of take his chances here. Like, you barely missed the KO with Brave Bird hyper voice follow up. Not sure, but either way, I think it was a little bit disrespectful just going straight for it. But yeah, once you, all right, so you lost one Pokemon, right? Here comes Dondozo. Here comes Toxtricity. Just blows up the Sylveon. If your lead does not work out the way that you want it to, then you're stuck with Dondozo Tatsugiri. And that means that, like, if they already have prepped for dealing with the Tatsugiri, then like what do you do? Because like right now you're dealing with, it looks like choice specs, I'm assuming, on the Toxtricity. I didn't check if you showed the team before. Yeah, like you're just kind of stuck. It's like you have to choose a target. You're essentially 2v1 since the Tatsugiri can't move. So like if they've set up appropriately, like, you can't do anything. Didn't calc that as well, and double Sylveon. I did find it interesting you don't hard switch out. It was a smart play, so why wouldn't I do it? I think it's relatively safe, because like because let's reset. Let's look at the situation, right? With Talonflame here, the expectation is that you Tailwind. If you do Tailwind, Sylveon hyper voices as expected, right? If the Meowscarada is Sash, it goes down to Sash. Cool. If the Palafin stays in, it takes what, half its life from a good hyper voice. In the meantime, you get a flip turn on the Talonflame that I'm pretty sure will kill it, especially if you don't have Focus Sash in return. I have no idea what item that you're running on here. Again, I haven't looked back on like any paste that might have been sent here. So like it's relatively safe to flip turn. And if you decide to do what you just did, go with a Brave Bird, if it goes into Palafin, you kind of have to double up with the hyper voice, because like even if it switches out, right, whatever comes in, you're not OHKOing. Like if Sableye comes in, you're not OHKOing. If Toxtricity comes in, you're not OHKOing. Bisharp, Toedscool, well, Toedscool you might OHKO, but everything else, you're not one hit KOing without a double up. The problem is, if you do double up with Brave Bird Hyper Voice, which is what you need to kill the Palafin if it stays in, you may end up losing the Sylveon to the Meowscarada, depending on what it has on it, right? To kind of avoid that and maybe hope that the Meowscarada doesn't have like a Sash or anything, you would have to Tailwind and then Hyper Voice. So maybe you didn't bring the Meowscarada down from there, but then Palafin still gets a free flip turn into the Talonflame. And then later on, when it switches back in, they can just finish off the Talonflame with Jet Punch. If that all makes sense. I know we kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent here, but like my main point was like, with the issue that I've seen with this lineup is just, if the early game doesn't work out from the initial lead, and you're bringing Dondozo Tatsugiri, it really kind of suffers in the end game, and you kind of don't want to immediately go for Dondozo Tatsugiri most of the time. So it's been really weird to position. Like it's been successful in the games it's successful in. Don't get me wrong. It's still just a strong combination in general. But it's like everything from the other two Pokemon has to work out just perfectly. And I think that it's really hard to find the right combination of Mons for any given matchup for just two Pokemon. Like you almost feel like, okay, maybe this week I drop Dondozo, I keep Tatsugiri as a Scarf Mon because, hey, it still has base 120 special attack, so it's still strong in its own right. So maybe you go like Talonflame plus Tatsugiri with choice specs, blow up the competition that way, or maybe you go choice Scarf Tatsugiri with Sylveon, do like some double AoE stuff. Like there are several routes you could go with that. You can even do like Tatsugiri Gothorita, fake out plus blow something up with choice specs Draco Meteor, and then reposition there. There are a number of ways that you can go about it. Yeah, I think it's really tough to do so. So like my opinion of the team and how strong it is has dropped a little bit. And I'll say that separately from how you've piloted the team, Eldrim. I think just on the surface level with the Pokemon themselves, it's just difficult. It's more difficult to operate than I thought because you just don't have like a quote unquote perfect Dondozo team. Like if you had like the what's the thing called? Palmot to do like revival blessing stuff. Maybe that's a strategy that could have been used. Like if you just got like some standard meta team where Dondozo Tatsugiri thrives, it might turn out a little bit different, but it's tough to do so because like you're funneled into choosing from very specific tiers, right? So I was saying, I still think this is a strong draft. So far, it hasn't been performing as well as I thought it would be. So I'm not gonna keep it at number 1 until we finish this up. Let's just say it is number 3 and we'll just readjust as we go along. All right, did I overlook anything from there? You mentioned the Vivillon that was there. Oh, you picked up a Spothra. I'm actually curious as to why you did that. I guess like you do like what, speed boost plus limited crash plus Sylveon or plus Tatsugiri. That could be scary. I don't mean to be revealing all the secrets, but just want to look at all the potential options. It's not like we have Sandy Shocks with gravity, so we don't get the cheesy hypnosis, unfortunately. But that's the first thing that comes to my mind, is pairing it with either one of these two and then going limited crash. And if you're a real G, you go like special Talonflame next to the limited crash. Want some more speed on your team without Tailwind, and Spothra has some supporting as well. Fair, understandable. I get that. It allows for some flexibility with your teams, with your lineups potentially, so you don't always feel pressured to go with Dondozo Tatsugiri, because to be honest, that's a bulk of your speed right there, just from the commander speed boost. If especially if you're not running the Talonflame. So I get it. I understand. All right, don't reveal all the special tech. My bad. My bad. Robert says, I watch your reviews of the teams each week because you always give away the strategies. Oh, hey. Listen, if I have to be in 6th place in my group, then I'm taking down the whole league with me. We're all burning here. All right, moving on. So right now I have Ultra number 3 with this draft because, again, I think just from the top mons, it's overall a strong lineup of Pokemon, but the combination and the piloting of the teams has been a little bit lackluster in comparison to what I thought it could do. So we're placing it there. Next one we'll go through is Darkbadger. Where did I put this? I have these in order. Why am I fumbling around? All right, so Darkbadger's team with the Kingambit and Volcarona. So, hey, I'm the saboteur. Look, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Okay. Mimikyu for Hat and Quaylectra. So, all right. So I did see some of the trades. I'm just going over what's been going on really for the past few weeks. This is why. That's the real reason I haven't like updated these. Like you can even see right here, I have 2 tabs for myself because one is just going over what I've been using for the past 5 weeks and the changes that I made to the team. But I promise we'll update these as we go along. I did see the trade for the Mimikyu and the Quaylectra. Good freaking pickup for the Mimikyu, I think, in my opinion. Anyway, so Kingambit, Volcarona, Hatterene, Haxorus, Rotom-Mow, Mudsdale, Crabominable, Morgrim, Oricorio, Jumpluff, and Lycanroc Midnight. All right, so this one kind of gave me whiplash. I initially ranked this number 7 on the standings, and I'll kind of explain where my head was at, right? When I look at these lineups, not only am I looking like, how strong are these Pokemon individually? Because that affects like how much influence it has over the metagame, right? But also, does it have any synergy with the rest of the Pokemon on the field? And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, he's going for some cheesy stuff because I see the Volcarona and Oricorio. So a little bit of disrespect unintentionally towards this draft, just because oh, they're going for a cheese strat. They're just looking to have fun, yada yada yada. But the way that's been performing, like you see, like it has the 4-1 record right now. Who did you lose to? Who did? To Keystone Records. Okay, I have to watch that one again. We'll do that later. But yeah, and then like outside of like that pairing, there wasn't a lot that made me say like this would be dangerous if these two Pokemon entered the field at the very same time. Like you know how like you have Mousehold and Annihilate. They work really well in tandem with each other because the Friend Guard plus Bulk Up makes Annihilate almost impossible to remove from the field, and then Beat Up also like empowers its Rage Fist without having to do too much. Right? I didn't see a lot of that initially on this team. However, Kingambit and especially Volcarona have been super performing in these weeks. Like every time I watch a replay, it's like, okay, Volcarona just shifted the balance of the entire or carried the game on its shoulders. Like even versus me, where it's like, okay, even though I have these contingencies to deal with the Volcarona, because I'm using Rotom Heat, right? I can kind of push it away until I can just like, what's the best way to explain it? Just by Rotom Heat being there, it's hard for Volcarona to want to do anything, especially if I've used Terra Fire on my Gastrodon, right? That was my whole plan. But then you come in, all right, you readjust game 3, show off Terra Rock, and that completely destroys that strategy, right? Let's see, my team is random. It's like soft Trick Room. True. I was even expecting a little bit of Trick Room there, but I was like, how do you consistently safely get this up, and how do you consistently get your major players onto the field to take advantage of Trick Room? And to be fair, like Kingambit works really well under Trick Room. Mudsdale, I think, is underrated for draft league format. So if it gets rolling under Trick Room, that's a problem. Like, because you can just you don't have to worry about using Inner Focus, since there's not like Intimidates running around. Especially the way that they did the tiers. So like Arcanine's tier 1, which is ridiculous. So nobody's picking that up. Gyarados, and I just picked it up, but like again, you're just not worried about Intimidate, so you can just run Stamina, and the more people hit you, the more your defense goes up, and you can just spam Body Press. Like it's actually insane. I didn't take all that into consideration when I first looked at this, so the Trick Room looks a little bit stronger just from that alone. So like Kingambit, Hatterene, Mudsdale, then like what Morgrem just for like fake out, because your only redirector to help you set up Trick Room is Jumpluff, and Rage Powder from that feels bad. So it's kind of a mixed bag, to where like, okay, I see the plans for Trick Room, they look okay, but then like, how do you safely get up Trick Room? That's where my head was at. But as far as like where the team stands now that like I'm realizing, you know what, Mudsdale is actually pretty good. So if you did want to set up Trick Room, you can do that consistently by pairing Hatterene and Morgrem, and then you, on top of that, you get screen support for Morgrem as well. So that makes it pretty strong. And then just on their own right, Kingambit, whether in Trick Room or out of Trick Room, is really just really strong. Again, draft format, there are a lot fewer resources to really deal with it appropriately, especially if you give it a good Terra. And then Volcarona is just a really strong special attacker that can also pivot into being more of a utility. So if you want to use slow Volcarona with Rage Powder with your Hatterene, I did forget about it getting Rage Powder when I mentioned Jumpluff, so excuse me for that. That'll help you set up Trick Room too. So like it's all, even if you say like, you know, it's random and it's like soft trick room, I think it, like, I mean, regardless of like, regardless of your record right now, I think if we like dive into it a little bit more, it comes together a lot better than I initially thought. It's still really weird. There is a little bit of random element for it, but just King Gambit and Volcarona on their own are really, really strong. Like, especially when you consider their synergy. Volcarona's weak to flying moves and rock moves. King Gambit gets to resist those. King Gambit is weak to fire type moves and fighting moves. Volcarona resists those, and if you really want it to, you can even use well, doesn't resist fire moves, excuse me, but it resists fighting. If you really wanted to, you can use Rage Powder from the bulky set to draw in like the fighting moves that are aimed for King Gambit, possibly cause a burn and just like King Gambit pop off, right? Let's see. Sorry, I've been ignoring chat a little bit. Got a player playing. Oh, it's just mostly TreeDolphin talking about his draft. We're getting there. We're getting there, slowly but surely. Yeah, like as far as the games though, like literally Volcarona's popped off in like, I think every single one, right? Hang on, let me take a quick look. Where are you? These are in order of, hold on, let me just do like this. E to Z, there we go. That's a lot better. Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Feel free to talk. I'm messing with you. Don't worry about it. All right. Let's see. I'm actually gonna run this fast. Orgrim, Lycanroc. We're going back to this. What was the week where you ran? Was it week 1 where you did the Oricorio thing? I was like, there's no way that he did that. All right, didn't need okay, well, didn't need Morgrim that game, but what was week 1? Was that a loss? Oh, that was a loss versus okay. Tailwind. Yeah, so it's like week 1 is was what I thought was was supposed to happen. It was like, oh, he immediately is going for the Oricorio Volcarona. Like, surprise, surprise. And then we get the Quiver Dance. Yeah. Heard that along. And like, which to be fair, like if a team doesn't consider that or isn't prepped for that, like, I mean, it could pop off and get a cheesy win. So like, I can't like fully knock it, but I was like, man, there's no way that this consistently works. And that's like at the forefront of my mind. But again, we're just like scratching the surface when we did the first analysis, but doing a little bit of a deep dive, you know, there are a lot more points that correlate for the team. 100% accurate Hurricane goes so hard, true. Oh yeah, Toadskool's been popping off. You aren't wrong there. Oh yeah, but yeah, like even here though, like just from even though this was like a loss for the set, right? Opening day, Volcarona is going crazy. Like we get a couple of quiver dances off. Like, what do you do? Like if you don't have like an actual contingency for it, what do you do? Even if we like, I think one of the things that I said for the pregame was like, okay, maybe you want to bring Umbreon along, so that way you can snarl all the special attackers, especially if they go for the Oricorio Dancer strat, right? But if you do that, number one, you could plan ahead with a Covert Cloak on the Volcarona, so then you don't get any special attack drops. And number two, you potentially activate a Defiant on King Gambit. Like you went for Overlord, Supreme Overlord, but like you don't know that until the match starts. So like if you proc Defiant while trying to lower the special attack of these mons, there's kind of a duality there that makes it much more dangerous, if that makes sense. So that's the other reason why this combo is so good. It's like, you want to try and stall the Volcarona to slow it down. Good luck dealing with a +2 Sucker Punch from King Gambit now. Crazy good. So yeah, it's a lot of ranting, but all that's to say, where did I rank? I ranked you at number 7. let me put this at 4 for now. Again, we're gonna continuously rearrange this. I've not formed an opinion up until now, so I don't have a way to like really organize until we like kind of get through it. All right. Next one is Keystone Records. Sorry, getting a text. All right, Keystone Records. So, Garganical, Skeledirge, Tauros, Paldea, Aqua. Don't know why they do it like that. Arboliva, Corviknight, Umbreon, Clodsire, Espeon, Banette, Ampharos, Go-Goat. I ranked this one number 3. And look at them, they're currently in 3rd place. How about that? Maybe I should just shift this automatically to 3rd place to keep the line even. Anyway, I really liked this team, not just because it has Umbreon, my favorite Pokemon and namesake, but one of the things that I keep saying about this being a draft league is how you want to be able to prepare for just about any particular matchup. And I think the wide variety of typings and both offensive and defensive tools from everything from Garganical to Umbreon is really solid. Like you have your Grass, Water, Fire core through Skeledirge, Tauros, and Arboliva. And between the three, you alternate pretty well between special attack, physical attack, special attack, and then like general utility. You have Garganical there just to be a very consistent damage dealer through the Salt Cure and the residual damage, and making the team even further bulkier. Corviknight I thought would be a pretty solid pickup, just as a steel type. Steel flying just gives you like a ton of resistances that you just can't ignore. And in the clutch, you also have access to things like Tailwind, Iron Defense, Body Press, just to make yourself even further bulkier while still outputting pretty good damage as well. Also, Mirror Armor is a really undervalued ability that we kind of forget on Corviknight a lot. So if you did run into any Intimidate users, you don't have to worry about that. If anyone's trying to use Snarl to slow down the Skeledirge, perhaps, you get to just bounce it right back at them. It's really cool. Like quite literally, the Keystone Records team is actually disgusting. Like just from these 6 Pokemon alone. I think if you literally just take these 6 Pokemon into any given week, it's actually just fine. And you can just pick the 4 that you need to handle that specific matchup. Now granted, Cloudsire's been putting in work for you. I didn't expect it to do a lot, considering it's not really too great on offense, but it's been a really good defensive annoyance. I just wasn't expecting too much of it because, like, all right, the rest of the team is really bulky while still putting out good damage or utility, while Clodsire is just like, it's there. It's kind of sitting there. But in the certain matchups, it's been pulling its weight, so I can't really knock it, right? I think the trouble just starts in the last 4, but again, it's lower tiers, not a ton of value that you get to find there. There's potential if you're brave enough that you can set up trick rooms with Espeon, like just toss a sash on it, and now you have Skeledirge and Garganical and Umbreon under trick room, just causing havoc. But I think it's really hard to set up because you don't have like Fake Out or a Redirector. So I'll also say, like, again, really bulky team, really solid type coverage across the board. Like I just don't think that like you're ever at a full disadvantage against any particular team. And I also thought like the Pokemon that you chose were good, like Garganical, Skeledirge, like on their own, I thought would have a lot more potential in a draft setting, because like Torch Song, Skeledirge with Unaware. People are scrambling around to try and get like stat boosts, and Skeledirge just doesn't care. Then you have to find a way to deal with it's just stacking up the Torch Song. So with the right Terra, you just don't really care about most of the things that that you want to throw Skeledirge's way. To an extent, obviously. Performance wise, it's hard to gauge, in my opinion. I think I guess what I mostly have trouble understanding is like the general approach to each matchup, because like we see Ampharos coming along a lot in the earlier games, I think, or I think like week 1 was like a screened Ampharos. Ampharos runs screens for him, which makes it even more disgusting. Actually, I like well, before I say this, does Espeon get reflect? I think it does, but I want to make sure. Yeah, okay. Depending on the matchup, I actually like screens more on Espeon just because it's the fastest thing on their team. So like if you I mean, like I think a lot of the other teams have like faster than base 110s on their team. They're not necessarily going to bring them, but just by virtue of Espeon potentially being the fastest mon on the field, you get the screens up a lot quicker, and that protects your team a lot better. Like granted, Ampharos is going to be bulkier, so you can kind of keep your screens. You can opt for light clay because like you can take a hit then put up the screens, whereas Espeon might be incentivized more to run focus sash, so just in case, so it doesn't die as quickly. But even then, you could still run light clay on Espeon, toss up the screens faster than anything else could, and I think that helps protect your team a lot better. But yeah, like bulk on top of bulk on top of potential screens on top of like just really good type diversity is just really solid. But I think the lineup choice in some of these replays looks a little bit weird. Yes, it's like here. This was, we keep coming back to this match. What in the world? So what? Volcarona, Oricorio, Rotom-Mow. Also, real quick, Darkbadger, I am so mad that you picked up Rotom-Mow, because quite literally I was going over this with my friends, like, man, if I can just pivot over to Rotom-Mow, I am willing to drop Rotom-Heat for something else just so I get a better grass type. And I was camping out waiting for the last trades to finish so trades would open, and I had to drop into a work meeting. Literally 30 minutes later, they announced, okay, trades are open, and then pick up the Rotom-Mow. I'm incredibly upset. Just want you to know that. Anyway, so let me see. What does this matchup look like on paper? Let me see. Where's my sheet? Oh, okay. So if we take, wait, I want to do this one. Sorry, let me get my stuff together. So this was Darkbadger versus KeystoneRecords, right? We take everything. All right, so here's KeystoneRecords team, and I need Darkbadger's team. Yes, I have all this organized, but also unorganized. Sorry. All right, now this should work. Yeah. Okay, so Darkbadger versus KeystoneRecords. Oh, wait. Wait, no, I wasn't supposed to do that. All right, I'm just gonna leave this alone. I'm not touching this any further. Okay, here's the team lineup. There you go. All right, this is not Whatshamidt, this is Darkbadger. So, what, Kingambit, Volcarona is at the top of the priority list to deal with. You're not particularly concerned with Hatterene because of Corviknight and Umbreon. Those will dispatch it pretty quickly. You don't mind if Trick Room really gets set up either, because that just gives rain for Garganacl to come in. If Kingambit tries to come in to counter, you can just run Terra Poison, or if you're afraid of Mudsdale, which you should be, you run like what, Terra Ghost, Terra Dragon, all viable options. Then what else did you pick here? So Garganacl was cool, sure. Umbreon, I think, is a weird bring. A little bit, because like if I'm looking at Volcarona, like we just talked about this, right? Like if Volcarona's sitting next to King Gambit, you can't do anything to King Gambit. If you try and snarl Volcarona, then you may end up proccing Defiant. On top of that, you're naturally weak to Bug Buzz. Hatterene, if they do bring that along, you're weak to the Dazzling Gleam. The Crabominable, if they are actually going for hard Trick Room, is an option that they can run for because it has Hyper Cutter, so it doesn't get affected by the Intimidate from the Tauros. It just makes it all really scary for Umbreon to be there. I would rather be relying on what Garganacl, Skeledirge, Tauros. Did you bring Tauros? Did not bring Tauros. Okay. Did not bring Tauros. And who else do I choose? I'm a little bit afraid of bringing Corviknight just because I don't want to get stuck versus Rotom-Mow. I understand the Ampharos here for that same purpose, but I probably do something a little bit more offensive or a different utility from screens. Just for the reason I mentioned earlier, right? It's slow. It has to take a hit first before it gets the screens up. I'd rather leave that job to Espeon. But from Ampharos's position, like if you spread across Thunder Waves or find a way to disable the Rotom-Mow, does it get Eerie Impulse? You know what? I haven't actually deep dove Ampharos yet. Terraghost, Garganacl, true. Is Guillotine normal? Yes, it is. But he had Terra Dragon, certainly. Wait, they were arguing that Terra normal was the best Terra type? Huh. Hey, don't get me wrong. When Scarlet and Violet came out, I thought Terra Normal might be actually pretty decent because you could do like Terra Normal Extreme Speed, which Dragonite started using for a bit, and potentially because Explosion sucks, make Explosion decent. But who knows? Oh, we get Electro Web. That's cool. I didn't know that. I don't think it matters for the sake of the matchup, but let me look at your special moves. Discharge. Do you have any ground types? You have Clodsire, so you did use Discharge, so. But my buddy is a little bit weak. Base 115 is not bad. Okay. So yeah, your options are narrow as far as like your special offense. So you're kind of forced to go into some type of utility. So obviously Screams looks very appealing. I am very much a fan of Helping Hand. Oh, Terra Dragon, not normal. My bad. Really? I get it. It was actually at the top of my list. Anyway, we'll get into that later. I'm actually a fan of Helping Hand because if something is too slow to act first, but still wants to be useful as far as utility goes, Helping Hand I think is just a really good move across the board. So like let's say that like you're like even for like slower offensive units, just like a technical option having Helping Hand. So like you're on your last legs, you're about to die. Before you do die, you have priority Helping Hand to boost whatever offensive mon you have sitting next to you. That's kind of my go-to, even just for general utility. You can spread Thunder Waves around for general speed control. You also have Electro Web for that, so it just depends. Eerie Impulse might have been an interesting option here, actually. Because like you sit in front of Rotom-Mow, you spam the Eerie Impulse into that slot. There aren't. I mean, you still run the risk of like King Gambit with Defiant coming in, but at that point, you gotta play your cards. Rotom-Mow, huh? You also have Skeledirge to handle the Rotom-Mow, which you brought along, which is cool too. All right, I'm ranting way too much, so feel free to stop me while I'm doing that. My whole point was like I wasn't confident in the lineups week per week, especially like week number 1. I felt you had not necessarily had to, but there was an incentive to bring the Tauros along, both to deal with Volcarona, both Volcarona and King Gambit at the same time. Because if you scout it out correctly, you may force one of them to Terra. If they Terra Water the Volcarona, for example, now you know you can close combat the King Gambit. If they Terra the King Gambit, now you know that you can Raging Bull or Wave Crash the Volcarona slot. And I think that's a valuable tool to keep handy when you can't like fully, when we're doing closed team sheets. Getting to put pressure on multiple Pokemon just by the use of one Pokemon, I think is something really valuable as far as the team selection goes. This is your paste for this game? Okay. You did bring the Covert Cloak. Ah, spot on. Probably for the Garganical when you turn Terra Water, but again, it also helps versus Umbreon. It can never snarl you and have any kind of effect, so. Assault Vest with Supreme Overlord because you're... Just out of curiosity, were you ever concerned about the Tauros Intimidate coming through, or were you just like, it doesn't matter because you can Terra Water the Volcarona, you have Oricorio and Rotomo all threatening it, and then Mudsdale with Stamina can also like take a close combat, increase his defense, and then go from there? I mean, Focus Sash, Magic Bounce. Yeah, very typical Hatterene. Cool. All right. I mean, overall, I mainly just like the Covert Cloak on Volcarona. I think it does so much for this particular matchup. But again, back on track. Again, I'm ranting. Stop me. Yeah. Just in general, I keep expecting certain Pokemon to show up that I think could offer more pressure for the matchup that don't end up showing up. Now, I mean, granted, that was a win for that week, so like I can't say too much about that. But I think it's performing just about average, like around where I expected to. Because where are you right now? You are 3-2 at number 3. It's like Loki, like not even trolling. I actually kind of want to keep this at number 3. Yeah, I actually kind of want to keep this at number 3. And then temporarily, or conditionally rather, move Darkbadger to 2. Now that we see like a lot more, yeah, like now that we've like seen a lot more correlation between the Pokemon and how they synergize, we can move this up a little bit. This is potentially temporary, so don't get too comfortable up there. But in order of the 3 that we just reviewed, this is the order that I would want to rank them right now. But yeah, let's keep going so we can get a full list. Thought I had Defiant. It is scared away. Okay. The 7 was personal. Oh, that's why you took it out on me for 3 whole games. I get it. Hey, you know what? How about this? I'll just put you at number 7 until I figure out another spot for you. There you go. Enjoy. But seriously, again, just from these 3 right here, these are the order that I rank just these 3 alone until we flesh out these rankings a little bit. All right, calm down. Next up, Quaylectra. Let's see. I know they're on the other side of the world, so I'm not sure if they're around for this, but hopefully they enjoy the content later on. All right, so this was the Torkoal team. Torkoal, Oranguru, Mousehold, Raichu, Scovillain, Ditto, Colossal, Zoroark, Golduck, Palossand, and Komala. So this is what's my initial ranking? I think I had it number 5, so just at the top of the bottom half of the list. So I already had a lack of faith. It's kind of a bad term to use. I'm not trying to bash on them for this team, but I had a lack of faith in Torkoal. So like once Series 1 started, Sonido, who we're checking in on now, he's in the middle of a tournament, just finished up round 2. He's actually a fan of Torkoal plus Lilligant, so he spent a lot of time trying to flesh out ideas and make that work, especially with this coming into a new format. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, we get Terra Fire and that boosts fire moves, and Torkoal gets Sun and it gets Eruption. Like, I mean, obviously it does like a ton of damage when set up appropriately, right? The problem is itself is if you don't get that particular setup consistently, the value of Torkoal goes down. And like even outside of Trick Room plus Sun plus Terra Fire, I think there are just like too many contingencies in place for helping to deal with Torkoal. Like you can bring in, you can slot in Rain, you can use Snarl to try and slow it down and then cut down its HP so it can't immediately Eruption. Alternatively, you can always just go for the one-hit KO on the Oran Guru if you have a strong enough move. I think there are just like way too many ways of actually shutting down Torkoal. That's hard for it to find success. When it works, it works. It's when it works, it's disgusting. Like that's an easy 2 or 3 turn game depending on how you operate. So like I don't blame them for going for it, especially if they just like Torkoal, for example. But my opinion wasn't terribly high just for that alone. At the same time, I was like, okay, they can still. This is a draft league. I'm gonna say that a lot. This is a draft league, so the rules change a little bit. You can snag some cheesy wins by just, okay, Oran Guru Trick Room can't be faked out because of inner focus. Set that up, use Eruption, instruct Eruption. And that just does a lot for the initial turns if the opponent's not prepared for it, don't have a way to deal with the Torkoal, right? But because it's a draft league, you can hyper focus on preparing for that, and it makes it harder for Torkoal to move. And I think that's exactly what's happened so far with this lineup. And we can even see the record is kind of matching up right now. Like they're 1-3 and still have another match to play against TreeDolphin. So they could end up getting another win going 2-3. Honestly, there's still hope for them to go like 4-3 by the end of the season if they just have to win every single game moving forward. But if they do end up losing this week, you can kind of see what's going into effect. You have this really strong 2 combination core that when it works easily grabs wins. If it doesn't, because there are a number of contingencies versus it, it's hard to pick up the slack, like especially with what they've chosen on the back end. Their highest tier Pokemon outside of the Torkoal are all supports. Like what Oran Guru, Mousehold, Raichu, these are all supportive Pokemon. I'm actually a little bit confused by the Raichu. I'm not sure like outside of Fake Out, the overall value it adds for the team, especially as a tier 3 pick. But I mean, just again, you have Torkoal as your main attacker, 3 other support Pokemon as your highest tiers. That leaves you very little room on the lower tier Pokemon to pick up something just as powerful as Torkoal if it doesn't work out. You have Scovillain, whose like offense is pretty average, like what, base 108 in both attacking stats. And even though you get the Chlorophyll, which synergizes with the Torkoal pretty well, it's not doing a ton before it goes down, because like for its just like mid-level special attack and attacking stats, you're also incredibly frail, base 65 HP and 65 in both defenses. So if you get touched, like that's another piece of your offense gone. I think they picked up Zoroark at some point, and I think that made some matchups a little bit trickier for the opponents. What was the match they just used it on? Was it versus Eltrim? Was that the one? Cause it wasn't week 1. He used it against you? Gotcha. Then it's probably this one. So I remember like reviewing that replay, and I was like, huh. The sun didn't activate, huh? Not gonna sneak by me. Rain Dance comes in. Now, I'm actually, well, no, you're good. If you leave the Luminion and the Gotharita, if the Torkoal is in, okay, no, I see the plan. I see the plan. Yeah, if you lead Gotharita, if the Torkoal actually does lead in instead of this Zoroark here, you activate the Rain Dance. Now the Torkoal can't, damage is mitigated, even if it's under Trick Room. And you get a Psychic off just to keep it honest. So like if it doesn't protect here, then you get a reduced power eruption. But just to lead off, that helps mitigate the damage with the Rain Dance. I get it. I get it. Cover the switch, the Psychic. Yeah. Yeah, as soon as the sun didn't go up, we knew it was Zoroark because we're not about to look at a white smoke Torkoal of all things. Zoroark does not get fake out. That'd actually be busted. And we'd never be able to tell if it was Zoroark or not. I'll check, but I'm pretty confident it doesn't have Zoroark. That Zoroark does not have fake out. Has fake tears if you want it though. There you go. Right. Where was I with this? Yeah, the Zoroark adds a little bit of flavor to the team and some offense. They have the way that you have to operate with it though is still it still makes this team difficult to use. It's like, all right, either use Torkoal and you succeed or you fail, or you use Zoroark and you have to be really careful about how you use it and get a big player knockout with it while you're at it to try and snag the win. Colossal, I'm sorry to say, Sword and Shield it had its time, but like right now, it's just not really amazing. Because you don't have the G Max. Like you really want the health pool to survive the whatever water move you throw at it to activate Steam Engine. And if you're just trying to use take advantage of its low speed to use under Trick Room, now you're not really incentivized to activate Weakness Policy since the main way is a water move, and that would just activate Steam Engine. Now, you could technically do something like Bulldoze if you have it somewhere, or just not run Steam Engine, run like Flash Fire instead. Certainly. But like it's still, you kind of want to reserve health, and every Aqua Jet you take is what, like 30% of your health without the additional health pool of Gmax. So I think that's really hard to use. Golduck confuses me because it, like obviously you don't have Rain for Swift Swim. Cloud9 shuts out the sun for Torkoal, so I guess its use is matchup dependent. But I think it's an awkward pick to want, because you're incentivized to use Cloud9, which just doesn't synergize with Torkoal at all. I mean, like I guess like Torkoal could just be strong on its own, especially if it Terra Fires, and then Cloud9 just allows Golduck to use water moves without being affected by the sun in the clutch. I could see that working out, but Golduck destroyed you game one because of Psych Up. Yeah, pretty sure it was just for you. Yeah, I'm telling you, that's also why you were number one. Everybody's going to be hyper focused on, oh snap, I need a way of dealing with Dondozo because we let him pick up both Dondozo and Tatsugiri. So yeah, I can see it. Use Psych Up on the Golduck is definitely one way of dealing with that. Palossand and Kamala, just your typical tier 5 picks, nothing to really see there. If Raichu was like a stronger electric type, you could do stuff like Discharge next to the Palossand maybe. I don't know, but there's just like outside of Torkoal or Oranguru, I don't see a lot of synergy around this team, and there aren't like a lot of strong, it's not a lot of strong offense either. Like you have to dig really deep into the pocket to find something that is like really strong to where like if Torkoal falls, you can use it as a backup strategy and do just as much damage. Everything is centered around making this work, and I don't think there's a lot to it. It's literally just these two by itself. So for right now, I'm actually gonna put it on the lower end. I'm gonna put it at the lower end of my rankings. Probably like 7th or 8th is where I'm feeling right now. see, I initially had it at 5. Right now, I'm kind of feeling safe. We'll see if we readjust it. Raichu gets, yeah. Raichu gets fake out, and like that's cool. It's just what will we be capitalizing off of if we use fake out? Like we can use fake out to set up Trick Room for Oranguru safely, but you can also kind of do that with Mouse Hole just by using Follow Me if you really wanted to. And you know what? I am overlooking an important factor here. So let me slow down. Mouse Hold is actually strong in its own right. Right? Like if you go Technician, Population Bomb, I don't think a ton of teams are. Well, before I say that, let me take a look. If you use Population Bomb, well, I lied. All right, yeah. Everybody's pretty well insulated versus Population Bomb, but if it finds itself in a position where it can just use it freely, you might pick up a quick KO with it. So like it's still like a threat, and you can even do something like Fake Out with Raichu, Population Bomb, just let Mouse Hole go off. That is definitely a possibility. But again, like the synergies between these Pokemon and how they work seems really weird. Like even if you set up the Population Bomb from Mouse Hole, what are you doing to capitalize after that? You don't have like the Annihilate to use Beat Up on. It almost seems like Friend Guard is your most consistent option to support the team with. And again, when you do that, you're lacking on general offense, and that makes things awkward. So yeah, just wanted to make sure I didn't skip over that. Like Mouse Hole is definitely a threat you have to consider. But all the same, I'm putting at the bottom of my list for right now. Don't give them ideas. Hey, listen, you still have to play them. So like this is this is detrimental for me as well. So like, and he still has another week to make their trades. So I told you, we're all burning here. I'm sabotaging everybody. Yeah, just want to play the Torkoal monkey. I get it. Like I really do get it. Like you see this, you're like, oh, they can't stop me from setting up Trick Room. I get the instruct. Like, how could I lose? It's a really fun setup when it works. I understand, but for the sake of consistency and just considering the draft in whole, it is shown so far, in my opinion, I can always be wrong, can always disagree, to be one of the weaker drafts that we have here. All right, moving on. We are looking at you, TreeDolphin. It's time to redeem yourself. I initially put you at number 8. Don't give away too much here. Oh no, I'm giving away everything that I can see, every single thing. Like I'm giving away the Choice Scarf Toxtricity. I'm giving away the obvious but often forgotten Eviolite Bisharp, the bulky Meowscarada, giving away the Trick Room Rapska next to the Eruption Camerupt. It's all gone. Secret files out. Anyway, Meowscarada, Palafin, Sableye, Toxtricity, Bisharp, Rapska, Primeape, Dachshbun, I never know how to pronounce that, Spiritomb, Toedscool, and Camerupt. So, on the initial ranking, what's consistent with how I was looking at this is, all right, I'm looking for synergies. That's the first thing I'm looking at. What things can pair well together, that if they're just on the field at the same time, it makes sense. Like they cover each other's weaknesses, or they set up each other pretty well. First thing I'm looking for is this. Second thing I'm looking for is, I'm not sure if type coverage is the correct word, but I am looking type diversity. Type diversity is probably the best word that I can give here. So like if we like compare it to KeystoneRecords team, right? One of the things I like about it is that you had not only a fire, water, grass core, but a solid fire water grass core. Like you can just bring them along and you can switch between them depending on the matchup. And they cover each other pretty well. And they're insulated by the Gargantuan and Corviknight for additional defensive type coverage. When I initially look at this, all right, here's their Firewater Grass Core, Meowscarada, Palafin, Camerupt, but that doesn't it doesn't accomplish the same thing, because the Palafin you have to switch out then back in because you want the hero form for that additional bulk and damage. The Meowscarada itself, as a grass type, is overall frail, so like you don't have the flexibility to switch it in and out to take like a ground move the way that you really want to, at least. And then you have Camerupt, which is, Camerupt, like, which is surprisingly not all that bulky. Every time I look at this, it always gets me like 70, 70, 75 as far as HP, defense, and special defense. Given like how like tank like this looks, it's always surprising that it's not actually defensive. It's incredibly weird. What am I saying about Camerupt? The Camerupt, I was just talking about the Choice Scarf plus Lava Plume strategy that you would use with your Body Press Dash button. That's all I was talking about. I told you, the secret files are out there. Anyway, so yeah, like that's like the first thing that I saw. Like I'm looking at those 3 Pokemon. I don't see like a lot of coverage between the typings because of the individual mons themselves. So that kind of fell out of favor. And then everything else in between either looked frail, or you were kind of forced into this Trick Room mode with Toedscool. And for one, I'm a hater of Trick Room. I do not like Trick Room, so there's a little bit of bias there too. And then the Pokemon that you place under Trick Room, which is really just what, Bisharp's really weird. That's base 70. I thought it was slower, but I keep forgetting it's faster than King Gambit. Rapska itself, which has a pretty strong, pretty solid special attack stat, so it can work well. And then of course Camerupt itself, you get Trick Room, just like with the Torkoal, you get to get some free eruptions there. But again, base 40, it works pretty well under Trick Room. So yeah, that's cool. But then like that runs really abstract to these first 2 Pokemon, Meowscarada and Palafin, in my opinion. So then like when I look at, all right, so if I subtract Meowscarada and Palafin from the equation, I don't see a ton of synergy between all of these mons here. I don't know how they consistently get their utility off, except for the Sableye, because Prankster's just that good. And then Toedscool is really weird. It could succeed, it could fail hard. I'm not fully sure how to feel about this Pokemon, but if you can make it work, Mycelium might free Spore into Goldingo, free Spore into like anything running Vital Spirit if somebody picked up the Annihilate, So if I'm just looking at everything on the back end, it just didn't look impressive to me when I first looked at it, right? So I'm heavily focusing on what can Meowscarada and Palafin do, and I legitimately think that both at the start of the game and the end of the game, they are always really powerful. There's the initial pressure, like we saw that with the game that we just watched, versus Eltrim, right? Setting up, trying to with the Talonflame in place, you get a free knockout from the flip turn if they stay there. You can also just opt for Jet Punch or Wave Crash, like if you're expecting like the Tailwind to go through. But if you just you can just use like flip turn, double up into it if it has Focus Sash if you need to, things of that nature. And then when you pivot out the Palafin, you save Meowscarada for the late game. You transition to your mid game, do some damage, and then bring back these 2 Pokemon again. Now you have one of the faster Pokemon in the format, on top of a really strong Jet Punch. It's hard to defend against. And my concern was, how do you transition between the early game and the mid game with the Pokemon that you have? Typically when I think about that, I think about bulky Pokemon, and nothing from this back end stuck out to me as bulky Pokemon. Like initially you had the Zoroark over the Spiritomb. I remember that. So um this wasn't part of the equation. And even if it were, I kind of think of Spiritomb as like an early game mon because you kind of want to set up the Trick Room or what have you. Yeah, everything else just doesn't have a ton of HP. So I'm always thinking, man, how do you transition between that? Now, granted, if you use the correct Terras, you use like you use the appropriate EVs, you can kind of make up for that lack of bulk from base stats, which is what TreeDolphin's actually shown. Like in the match versus me, like just made everything extremely bulky. I'm like, really? I gotta sit through this and not pick up a KO? He's talking that Toe School like it's not a T3 pick. True. Yes, I did fall for the revival blessing because I forgot that Rapska had it. That is on me. But yeah, that's on me as a player, not me as an analyst. So if I were looking at this for another week or so, I would, oh, it gets revival blessing. I should be aware of that. But me, the dummy Pokemon player that's too old to play Pokemon, I'm sitting in the retirement home, so I forget things a lot. You'll have to excuse me. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, that's the view that I was going for. Meowscarada Palafin, really strong. The rest of the team looks like middling and hard to transition into. So I was just concerned with how the game flow would actually be. But with the way that they prepared for each week, they've actually done solid, if I recall correctly. 2-2 now, potentially 3-2, depending on how decently they match into Quaylectra. And I think that match is actually going to be important because if Quaylectra wins, now they have the head-to-head. So even if you end up with the same record at the end of the season, Quaylectra will get ahead of you. So gotta make sure to take care of that. Let's see. So what have we prepared for? I saw you bring Sableye to a couple of matches, and Sableye is always really weird to me because like I see the general utility it has just because of Prankster. It's got a lot of dangerous moves to use Prankster from. Will-O-Wisp, screens, what was it? Disable, Encore, even gets Fake Out, you know, Sunny Day, and does it get Rain Dance? Does it get both weathers? I keep forgetting. I'm pretty sure it gets Sunny Day. Yeah, Sunny Day, and yep, and it does get Rain Dance. So like, if you have a weather strategy in mind, I can use that. But the problem is you want like 4 utility moves on it at all times. But if you do that, like you saw like 1 week you got jammed up at the very end of the game because Sableye couldn't attack. I'm not certain if it would have made it much of a difference, but it's always awkward for me knowing that Sableye doesn't have like a ton of damage it can output. But you kind of don't want to, so you don't really necessarily want to have an attacking mon or attacking move rather, but you don't want to be left defenseless just running all utility moves unless you're just that brave. So that kind of affects my my opinion there as well. But just with the way that you piloted it, I definitely don't think it's a bottom tier team any longer. Why can't I get my tab straight? So I had you at 8th beforehand. Provisionally, I want to put you at 6. Like, if I do want to see this last matchup between you and Quaylectra, just to get a better opinion. I was really hoping that would come through first, just to get better accuracy. But the way that things have panned out, with 2-2 being even in your matches, the opinion, like, stock has definitely rise. Don't get that twisted. But I don't want to move it too far forward without seeing like how you handle that matchup, because I think that one's gonna be crucial because well, I guess while we're at it, let's actually take a look, like a closer look, right? Let's go to our teams. we'll do. Oh, I already got you set up. Cool. I thought ahead unintentionally. So like Torkoal versus your team. So again, let's take Palafin and Masquerade out of the equation real quick. Right. I mentioned before, like one of the caveats of this team is like you have some incentive to want to run Trick Room, but that's definitely not the case versus Torkoal, most obviously. So you have to have a way to shut down the Torkoal. Part of me believes a little bit of that is on Sableye, perhaps with Rain Dance to help slow it down if you really want to. Part of me believes that's on Sableye if you want to like taunt the Oranguru, but they can always counter that with like a mental herb. So then it's like, okay, maybe Bisharp with like a good Terra is a solution to the problem, so you can help take out the Oranguru really quickly. They can counter that with the Terra after making adjustments between the games, right? The whole dynamic between these Pokemon and trying to shut down the main strategy here is really tricky. And if you don't get it quite right, you may get overrun by the Torkoal, especially considering like if you lead like Masquerade Palafin. Masquerade is somewhat under duress already. Oh no, let me take that back. You are a dark type, so you do threaten Oranguru, similar to how Bisharp does. My apologies. Again, you have to consider Terra, but those are adjustments they can make along the way. They also don't have to lead Oranguru to it plus Torkoal. They can lead Oranguru plus Mousehold, Follow Me Trick Room, Oranguru plus Raichu, Fake Out Trick Room, things of that nature. So whatever you do to actually deal with Trick Room has to be airtight, because I think Torkoal just overruns you otherwise. Because if it gets that sunny day up or the drought up, Palafin's doing less damage even after turning into hero form, and that just makes it tougher for you to do damage into it. Especially since you don't have anything like well, you have Camerupt for stab ground type moves, right? But like just naturally being faster than Torkoal under Trick Room, Torkoal will always get ahead of you, potentially kill you with its own Earth power if it's strong enough, or just the combination of Eruption, Instruct Eruption, maybe enough. What's a base 60 speed on the Oranguru? Yeah, it might be able to do it. But yeah, I think Trick Room's the problem to solve, or at least stopping the Trick Room, or somehow slowing down Torkoal early is going to be a key here. I think they don't necessarily want to bring Mousehold for the same reason that I didn't do like Boom Burst stuff into this team, because you have two Ghost types, so that might make it. They may be considering that. It might make it tricky for them. Who knows? But yeah. Anyway, getting back to the point though. Not a bottom tier team in my opinion. I do want to see what this match turned out to be like, but for now, provisionally, I want to place it 6th. Definitely not at the bottom though. I think just Masquerade Palafin is actually just too good. I cannot rank it at the very bottom, despite any issues I have with the rest of the squad. I simply cannot, especially with Palafin being like my favorite Scarlet Violet Pokemon. So there you go. Umby, can you prep me against Ryu? Let me do that at the very end. I don't care if it's a joke. We're putting out all the secrets. Putting out all the secrets today. Now the only caveat though is now I have to help prep against you. I'm gonna prep harder against you because I'm still mad at that freaking Rotom trade. All right. Yeah. I do want to see how the match goes, but potentially this rank moves up. I think there's more to that team that I am overlooking, just because of the way that I look at Pokemon and the flow of battle. But I've definitely been wrong before, so I do want to see at least one more match to get a better picture. Let's see. I mean, I agree that Boom Burst is bad in the matchup. It only has Palisand, not Ghost. Wait, I may have misunderstood that. Oh, no. I said to get, what I meant was they may not. I was considering all the Pokemon that they could run into you. What I was trying to say, if I didn't say it clearly, is that they may not want to use Mouse Hold because you have 2 ghost types. So that may be something that they're considering here. Because I had mentioned like they could do something like Follow Me Trick Room, but they may not want to use Mouse Hold in general because of those 2 ghosts on your team. Because if they do, like, they're essentially out 1 Pokemon, like almost essentially, not quite, but like you get it. Like Mouse Hold has potential just to do something for the team, but you know, if you roll the dice, the odds are out of your favor, right? Like I told you I told you I was gonna do. I try not to be a liar. Anyway. All right, getting back on track. All right, Ryu, sitting comfortable at number 1 standing. I initially gave them a rank of 2, and I believe I said that potentially it could be number 1. That was just me overvaluing the Dondozo. And here they are sitting at number 1, and I actually am gonna just go ahead and give it number 1. That's the only one where I thought ahead. I'm probably just gonna give this the number 1 spot, and the reasons are pretty simple. Again, also you're not last draft. You were number 7. All right. So Ryu's team, number 1 slot. So reasons being, again, this is a draft environment, and I think Rain, especially with a good Swift Swimmer and or Palafin, is really strong. I'll talk about this a little bit later too, but it was my intention to actually start off with Pelipper and try and get a Swift Swimmer, or really Pelipper Palafin, but if not, Pelipper Floatzel. Like, quite literally, that was my initial strategy, and they scooped it up immediately when I didn't, but we'll get into that later. Because and the way that they pick these mons, they have insulated themselves pretty well against the draft. So, like, not only do you have Pelipper plus Floatzel as a really strong Swift Swimmer duo, right? How do you defend against that? You either need water resistances, and there aren't a ton that are bulky enough to take the Wave Crash from Floatzel without severe damage. One of those, I would say, is Rotom, like a bulky Rotom set, and then which can then fire back with Thunderbolt. But he's picked that up. Well, they've picked that up already, right? Then you have Dondozo, Tatsugiri. That's only 1 team. That's 2 Pokemon on 1 team. So against the rest of the draft, you either need like a bulky Grass type after that, which there's a drought on Grass types in this league. So that job is pretty much left up to Rotom Mo, and I had one more in mind. Let me see. Abomasnow. Yeah, Abomasnow, Amoonguss. Those are like your top 2 defensive Grass types, and those were picked up by Sham. Right, so like all the things that like defend against it really well are really isolated, right? And then after that you have like water nullification, so Storm Drain and water absorb. Nobody's picking up Vaporeon, And then I have the Storm Drain from Gastrodon, which worked out pretty well in my favor. But so like, but the last one's the only one that you really have to worry about, because for the if there's a bulky water type, like I mentioned, you have Rotom already. Even if there were other bulky water Pokemon, you get to strike it back with a Thunderbolt. So you're not doing enough damage to like mitigate what's happening to you. And if you choose a bulky grass type, well, it'd be a shame if Pelipper were also a flying type with Stab Hurricane, and if he had Dragonite on his team, on their team. Excuse me, I'm sorry. If they had Dragonite on their team, which they do. Like this just follows the general rules of how we layered Rain during Series 1. Like quite literally, they are following the plan that like I initially wanted. But you get Pelipper, Floatzel, you get Dragonite. I was thinking more of like a special Dragonite with Hurricane and Tailwind, but they've gone full physical each week, which is still just fine. That's also a strength of the team, is that Dragonite adds so much value just from its flexibility, and from its abilities too. Like I mentioned, there's no need to worry about Intimidate, so you don't have to run Inner Focus. You just run Multiscale, and now not only are you really powerful, you're incredibly bulky and hard to remove from the field. And we've even seen from them, because they're so safe with Multiscale, that's just an easy way for them to run Weakness Policy and do even more damage to whatever comes their way. You also have Tinkaton, which we haven't seen come in, and although I hate Tinkaton and think it's just a garbage Pokemon, no troll, I think it's really bad. Again, Draft League format, but also Steel type under Rain always has its advantages, just because you're reducing the power of fire moves that would normally target it. So it's still just like a solid bond to bring along for the Steel and Fairy coverage all in one package. It does look really well positioned on this team, despite how I feel about it as a Pokemon. On top of that, like we're not even done with the layers. Stonjourner was picked up as a tier 5, which is a little bit criminal. That thing needs to be a tier 3, because Power Spot is actually a dumb ability. Like obviously we don't see it in like a standard format, just because of its shortcomings as a special on the special defense side. It's harder to use. We did see it come out in Knoxville with the Focus Sash, which is pretty cool, but again, Draft League format, really strong, especially sitting next to Dragonite of all things. Like Power Spot Extreme Speeds or Weakness Policy Power Spot anything is really, really insane. We're still not done yet. They also have 3 fake out users, which is important to understand, because not only did they take 3 fake out users, they took 2 of the fastest ones in Salazzle and Sneasel. So like even if you did want to pick up if there are any remaining fake out users left, even if you wanted to pick them up, their fake outs outrun you. And they're limiting the options by choosing the Tinkaton, Sneasel, and Salazzle with that. And like the worst part is like any of these Pokemon could work on any of these squads. Like we just saw in the last few weeks, they've been using Salazzle. I was really hyped about the Salazzle because before Knoxville, before I switched my team up, I was using an old tech I got from Jamie Boyd, where they're running or where they mentioned eject button, overheat, special, Talonflame. So I was actually messing around and experimenting with that on ladder for a little bit, and to see it come out here in the last week, we just use fake out then overheat to reposition the Salazzle and also get key knockouts on certain targets, I thought was really cool. So they got that going for them. And then last but not least, I think Glamora and Gardevoir add some like general value as special attackers to the team. Like Glamora, obviously, Rock and Poison is an underrated. Well, is underrated the right word? Sometimes overlooked kind of offensive combination, because you're only really not hitting ground and steel types effectively with it. For the ground types, you get Energy Ball, and they don't want to really deal with your rain Pokemon. And for the steel types, that's what you have the Salazzle for, and it even gets coverage with that, with Earth Power for that. So like you got really solid and diverse offensive options, even though rain is like the main one. That significantly helps you out in preparation for the matches. Like before you even start thinking about Terras, like you can just really go all in on your offense because you can cover like everything so well with this squad. It's insane. Even with Gardevoir's on its ability, it's got telepathy, so you can do stuff like discharge Rotom Wash. You can do Earthquake with Dragonite, and even with the Earthquake with Dragonite, you also not only do you have telepathy, you have Pelipper as a flying type, you have Rotom Wash with Levitate. You can really just go to town with that. It's an insane amount of layering, all on the same team, and I think its offensive prowess is just shining through each and every week, especially when it comes to dealing with the Dragonite. People have just been leaving that alone because they don't want to activate the weakness policy under the multi-scale. But the more they do that, the more damage they're taking from the Dragonite, who I think that's the strongest stat on the field. Yeah, that's the strongest stat in their team. So if you're just taking base 134 Terra Blast or Dragon Claws or even Earthquakes from like Terra Ground Earthquakes, like good luck scrambling through the rest of the game. It's really tough. So yeah, I'm a little bit jealous, I'm not gonna lie, because this was a strategy that I should have gone for, and that I was planning to do, but I got a little bit greedy with my first round pick. So kudos to them for scrapping together this squad, because I think it is legitimately insane. Like just like aside from the record that they've built up and the way that the battles have gone each week, just objectively on the surface level with the Pokemon chosen, I think it's ridiculous. I think it deserves #1 spot. Cool. I've said a lot about that one, so let's get closer to the end here. So, Sham's team. All right, I already updated their trade. They had wait. That might be the wrong one. Hold on. Let me get this corrected. Because they picked up Excalibur, but I think they traded Titan for it. Here, I can just go to the trades, right? They traded Titan. What did they have before though? Oh wait, I'm stupid. Listen, I'm old and I'm tired. Leave me alone. What did I accidentally replace here? What is the fourth mon here? Mungus, Excalibur, Tauros. Oh, okay. This is supposed to be a Abomasnow. That's what's wrong. Got it. Yeah, I remember they had this as Titan. They traded out Excalibur for it. I put the Excalibur in the wrong slot, so I tripped myself up there. My apologies. Anyway, I'll re-update that later, but this is what they've been running up until this past week. So I commented on this earlier in saying that while I definitely see the synergies between these mons, like type-wise, I think overall it is a hard team to pilot situationally. And what I mean by that, because there are so many shared type weaknesses, it makes it harder to create a cohesive squad while reducing the amount of shared weaknesses at the same time. I'm gonna try my best to explain here. So let's say that Abomasnow and Titan are the Pokemon that you want to bring at the same time, because obviously, like, Slush Rush, that makes a lot of sense. then let's say you want to shore up your type weaknesses. Like you're both weak to fire, you're both weak to steel. Only one of you can Terra, right? So obviously you want to bring a fire type along. General idea is going to be Tauros, Paldea. Now you are very heavily physically offensive between Titan and Tauros. So maybe you want to balance out with a special attacker, right? So let's say that in order to do that, you decide you want to bring Magnezone along. All right, now you've stopped at 4 Pokemon. Even if one of those Pokemon Terras, 2 of those Pokemon are gonna share a type, which makes it hard to try and switch in to defend against those types if they have advantage. Like let's say like we lead Abomasnow Titan, right? We Terra Water the Titan, and eventually they bring in a let's say Garchomp, right? Like it's a ground type, with it's a stab ground type and a powerful one at that, right? If for whatever reason the Abomasnow is threatened, let's say they prep for the matchup and decide to bring Fire Fang, right? Then the Abomasnow goes down, and then there's just Magnezone and Tauros left, who are both weak to the Earthquake. And if this Titan can't bring it down quick enough, then you're kind of stuck. Fighting type breaks the team, right? Like the same thing happens there, right? Fighting type comes onto the field. Titan and Abomasnow are threatened. Only one of them can Terra. You have to cover that fighting weakness with like Amoonguss. But if you bring in the Amoonguss, now you're sharing, there's another fire type weakness there that you're sharing, another flying type weakness there as well. Okay, maybe you want to bring in Dragalge. Now, I mean, that's Dragalge. Like, not really incentivized to like bring it in. And then because like you're bringing Abomasnow Titan, you're incentivized to bring a steel type against that. So Dragalge doesn't help you out with that. The Tauros does, Magnezone does, but now again, it's this really weird and vicious cycle because there are so many type weaknesses stacked on top of each other. I don't know specifically what I would do to resolve that when the options are so limited. However, I think a big step that they took was trading out the Baxcalibur for Titan. At the risk of a detriment to myself, I do legitimately think draft format, Baxcalibur is one of the most ridiculous Pokemon to bring into the format because everybody will have such a hard time defending against it. Like any steel type that you would bring, they can prep for that. Bring like Earthquake if they really want it to, and then Glaive Rush just sweeps the entire field. All right, you gotta head out. We'll watch the rest when it comes out. Hey, appreciate it, and good luck to you too on your next upcoming matches, Eltram. Appreciate you stopping by. So yeah, if we're going all in on having an Abomasnow team, which I think Abomasnow is a pretty decent Pokemon, especially if you can get the Aurora Veil off. Aurora Veil on top of the natural defense boost that Baxcalibur gets from the snow can be really insane because not only do you have to consider that most of the steel type moves, like outside of like make it rain from Goldingo, for example, right, are going to be physical. So if you layer Aurora Veil on top of the snow boost that it gets, it's hard to remove it from the physical side. From the special side, you don't really have a lot of options. You have Dragon, and if you're using Stab Dragon, you're going to get cleared by Glaive Rush unless you Terra Steel. And like I said, you can kind of prep for that by using like Earthquake yourself if you really want it to. And like just pair it next to the Flamigo so you don't take the AoE damage, and that makes it harder for the opponent to deal with your offense. So yeah, I think that was a key pickup, but like overall, like the base issues I think still remain. Like all the shared type weaknesses make it so that okay, maybe we don't have to focus down the one Pokemon that uses Terra. Now you get to focus on the Pokemon surrounding that and then work your way towards it. It's especially the way that the matches have flowed for Sham's battles. They've been willing to trade Pokemon for Pokemon until it's last man standing. And the matches where it seems like they get stuck in is when the opponent is, or the point where like the tide turns is when the opponent's been able to slow down the game, even if just for a turn, to get rid of a major threat. And it almost feels like you're forced to go into the route of like trying to trade because of all the issues that we've mentioned so far. It's like, okay, well, I used my Terra on my other Steelmon already, so this Steelmon's unprotected, so I just gotta go for an attack, hope it pans out. That's just seemingly how the matches have looked like to me, which, if like you're fast and strong enough, can work out. Just so far, I think it's been more on their opponents being able to outplay them and kind of resist their strategies that they've been going for. That's been causing the losses there. But I mean, I'm up against them next, so maybe it'll go in their favor because, you know, I'm washed up. Probably an easy match for them. Who knows? But yeah, like, I mean, overall, I don't hate the general draft because I think Abomasnow's decent. You pair it up to a decent ice type, it's pretty cool. I was thinking, like, you know, Titan with Slush Rush being able to outrun the most of the matchups they're going to run into while still being really bulky could cause some problems, especially when you consider stuff like Belly Drum strats next to Flamigo could be annoying. Was even thinking that like even Earthworm in certain matchups could cause an issue if set up properly. Do like what, Rage Powder, Shed Tail into into Titan before the Belly Drum, things like that. I thought could have been pretty sweet, but it's again, it's hard to pilot. I don't think it's I don't think it's a bad draft. I just think there are so many flaws. Well, the flaws that it does have make it really difficult to pilot the way that you want to where like you're forced to make these heavily offensive decisions that, if the opponent defends against properly, it just may cause some issues mid game. So I rated that at number 6. For me, it's somewhere between 6 and 7 for me. For now, I want to put it at 7. Oh, no. Let me say 7. Tell you what. Let's say 6. Then let's say, let's say 6. Push you up to 5. And then I'm gonna leave myself at number 7 for now. Let me see how this looks. Okay, so what, Ryu first, Darkbadger at 2nd, KeystoneRecords at 3rd, Whatshamidt 4th, TreeDolphin at 5th, Sham at 6th, me at 7th, and Quaylectra at 8th. Now, if I'm looking at this purely on the Pokemon themselves, this list looks a little bit different. But I'm also trying to factor in the performance of each team. So this was a little bit of the initial analysis, a little bit of the new analysis, and a little bit of like their current rankings. I could make an argument for my team being better than 7th. I certainly can. And I was explaining earlier how I would go over this in a new video. I think my team is pretty scary. I like it, but there are several problems, and part of it's related to me. Like, again, I'm balancing out the draft itself plus the performance, and since I know the issues that I have with my team, that's also why I'm ranking a little bit low. I can make an argument for it being 5th or 6th. I truly could, but I'm pushing myself down to 7 because it's vastly underperforming versus how well it should be performing in my opinion. So one sec. Been talking a lot in succession without a drink of water, so make sure to hydrate yourself. So let's start off with the story of this team. Initially, like I said, I had planned to go a full route with a rain team by getting Pelipper round 1 of the draft if I was able to. The problem is I ended up being first in the draft, and I said, okay, I have to pick Goldingo. Goldingo is like the most amazing Pokemon ever to exist in available in this format. Gotta do it. So I locked it in round 1 and disrespectfully said, hey, there's no way that they're gonna pick a Pelipper round 1, right? Because like even if you pick like Palafin, which is my plan, get Pelipper and Palafin. I was expecting Palafin to go pretty quickly, so I would just go Pelipper into Floatzel, but those got picked up immediately. And so there was no recourse for me to do a range strategy like I wanted to. So instead, yeah, you're taking, like, yeah, stole that right from underneath me. I should have suspected, because like even when you said you were getting a logo done, I was like, they're probably getting a Palafin logo just by the basis of their name. I didn't want to assume. Lo and behold, not only do you get the Palafin logo, you get Palafin as well. So that's also a mistake on my part. I could have just picked that too first if I really wanted to. But anyway, that's the past. So my initial strategy didn't pan out, so I have to flex a little bit. Because my idea was like, maybe if I get Goldingo, I can do the rain duo that I need. I want a dragon flying type. I'm not going to be able to get Dragonite or Salamence. The next best bet for that is then going to be Noivern. Since I was already planning to do Noivern, I said, okay, what if I just pair the Noivern with Goldingo? That allows me to do Terra Normal Boom Burst next to Make It Rain. That might be like some cheesy AoE strats in there. To make myself defensively sound, I immediately picked Rotom Heat and Gastrodon, because I knew I would need a way to deal with Dondozo. I knew I needed a way to deal with Palafin after it had already been picked up, so Gastrodon was just like the obvious choice. And I think Rotom Heat works really well with it in tandem. Obviously the Rotom threatening any grass types that could be aimed towards Gastrodon. You also get the benefit of doing some more AoE stuff, like Discharge next to it. I was even planning to do like Gardevoir so I can get the telepathy on board as well. And then I had Mabostiff instead of Hawlucha, just for a bulky Snarler in case somebody wanted to run like Trick Room plus what's his name? Armarouge. Thank you. But I just ended up not bringing it to matches because like its stats are just so subpar that I didn't care to bring it to any matches. Now as we got to the later part of the draft, I'm just left with like my tier 4s and my tier 5s. Like, what do I do? Lycanroc and Hippowdon were available, so I just figured, okay, might as well try and use this to get like some speed advantage because I don't have a Tailwinder or any other ways of speed control, like a fast Icy Winder. Lycanroc, Hippowdon were just like kind of my way into that area. And then last but not least, Tropius. Like I mentioned, there's a shortage of grass types. I had already picked Rotom. Serena was gone. That's like one of my favorite Pokemon. I couldn't get it. So it was just left to Tropius in tier 5 as my value pick, quote unquote, and one of the only grass types left. Like I mentioned earlier, I planned to swap out the Rotom Heat and then Tropius for something else, like Flareon as my fire type, if I could have gotten the Rotom Mo, but that didn't pan out. So I'm just kind of stuck with what I have here and tried to play it to, well, with the exception of a couple of turns, to the best of my ability. So problem number 1, historically, I have an issue using Goldingo. It is a personal problem. I don't see the game in a way that allows me to use it at its maximum effectiveness, which is why when it shows up, Like if you've seen the matches of the matches for these past 5 weeks, whenever Goldingo shows up, it makes a quick exit because like it's not in a good position to take control of the game and or put any pressure down, right? Or I just end up not bringing it at all because like it's like a curse for me. I cannot use this thing. Issue number 2, which relates to issue number 1. Outside of Goldingo, I don't have a terribly high offense on anybody. Like, Goldingo's base 133. The next highest stat I have is Lycanroc's attack at base 115, which is power crept by a lot of Pokemon that were available to everybody else. So if I can't use Goldingo effectively, I'm forced to like try and create a defensive position, like for example with Gastrodon and Rotom Heat, and then try and slowly chip my way into a victory while hopefully shutting down my opponent's options. Hippowdon and Lycanroc aren't cheesy enough. Like Lycanroc really needs the Tyranitar to slap on the rock slides and to get the benefit of the special defense boost from the sand. You also get the option for like Terraflying and all that other jazz if you really want to. But I haven't been able to make the Lycanroc work, especially since everyone's so prepped for it with like an appropriate ground type or an appropriate steel type. It just hasn't worked out with high efficiency the way that I've been piloting it, right? Even Noivern, the fastest Pokemon on my team and usually faster than everything else on the enemy team, can pretty safely get up Tailwind. So like if I'm a more polished Goldingo player, I just set up Tailwind, make it rain, and just go about my day. But that's just not the way that I think about Pokemon, especially again in a draft league. So it's not like a strategy that I pulled out and the team is suffering for it. So that's all the reason that I've put my team that low. It's nothing like imposter syndrome. It's just in comparison to what I thought it can do, which is why I ranked it, at number 4. I thought it was a pretty solid draft, at least defensively, and then the synergies I've created between the Pokemon. Again, that's one of the positive points I looked at is synergy between Pokemon, and being flexible between matchups. But the performance itself is very lackluster. So instead, I think Darkbadger, you asked me why I made the trades that I did, and we'll go over those right now while we're at it. So I traded out Goldingo for Hydreigon, traded out Rotom for Ceruledge, traded out Gastrodon for Gyarados, and what was this fourth one? I traded out Noivern, thank you, for Weavile. Yeah, like it's a completely different thing now. So my reasoning for that was, if Goldingo is something that I just need to get rid of because I personally have issues using it, I still want to maintain having a strong, excuse me, a strong special attacker since I don't really have it elsewhere. And the only things left that I'm comfortable with were like Salamence and Hydreigon. Salamence, I'm not comfortable using as a special. I'm not comfortable using it all outside of rain, if I'm being honest. Because physically, I don't like its options. Like you can use Terraflying, Terra Blast, but that always just something about that is always weird to me. I don't know what it is. But I just see it like I like its value under rain because you can spam strong Draco Meteors and Hurricanes. Since I don't have rain, I said, okay, well I'll just use Hydreigon. If I use Hydreigon, I'm gonna want a ghost type to pair next to it. I think like Hydreigon next to a ghost type is really sick. I was struggling choosing between Ceruledge and Mimikyu. Ultimately, because I had to trade Rotom out, I wouldn't have a fire type unless I trade it for a Ceruledge. So I just went with that direction, which I think is still which I think is still really good. Yeah, I think it's still really good. Since I'm not using I'm not using Rotom. I was comfortable also trading the Gastrodon, and that's another thing. Gastrodon's really just meant to be a defensive counter. Again, shut down options while I try and scrap back for damage. But the lack of power again is an issue I'm trying to solve. So also trade it for Gyarados, which could be a potential sleeper pick to help solve some of my issues. Um, in combination with those three, I think it makes a really solid pairing. So like along with Ceruledge, you get to switch into fighting types that threaten the Hydreigon, Gyarados in return. Anything that's threatening it with like electric moves, I get to swap Hydreigon into if I really need to. The Ceruledge, any water types I can switch the Gyarados into. So there's a little bit of leeway as far as like defensive switch-ins that I can utilize to my favor, while at the same time having really good offense. What Hydreigon and Ceruledge at base 125, special attack and attack, respectively. Struggling with that word. Also Gyarados at base 125. So I've solved my power issues while still retaining the defensive type coverage that I like to pilot teams with. Now, since I already picked up Hydreigon, I don't really care to have another dragon type on the team, so I wanted to get rid of Noivern. And the only remaining viable picks within that same tier, well, really the only one in my opinion was Weavile. So that gives me a fake out user. It gives me some maneuvering that I can do. I can do like fake tier stuff. I can do Screech stuff. Weavile also happens to be like one of my top 10 favorite Pokemon probably. So it's got the benefit of that as well. A little bit of a serotonin boost. Overall, I really just I like the first three that I switched, and then Weavile was just all right. Might as well, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, I think I'm still fine with these three, and then Lycanroc and Powdon in the background, and maybe Tropius. Who knows? But yeah, that is. Let me see if I agree with this list first. So Ryu definitely at number one. Quaylectra, even though we haven't finished the match for week 5 yet, I think is in last place because their team is just so restricted in what it can do effectively. And I agree. I'm probably underrating my initial lineup. Again, I'm trying to be objective to both the team itself and its performance, which is why I pushed it down so low. I mean, I could put it at 5 just to spite TreeDolphin and be funny a little bit, but I do feel that it is not as good as Sham's team. I think Sham's general offense is really it's actually really strong in my opinion, or at least like solid enough that I can see why like the matches turn out the way they do, where we're just knocking a Pokemon out, getting knocked out in return, knocking a Pokemon out, getting knocked out in return. And that in itself is scary because you could like plan for like 3 days. You're like, all right, I'm gonna deal with one Pokemon this way, and then they surprise you with just like one technical move, and then now you're having to fight for your life. So I definitely, at the very least, even if I had to push my team up, I think it's still underneath Sham's team. Tell you what, let me look at this again. Let me look at TreeDolphin's squad again. I really want to see this next match. That's what's really throwing me off, because like right now, I actually want to put TreeDolphin lower. I think it has potential to be number 5, depending on how this next match plays out. So all right, let's do this. Let's say provisionally. All right, let's say provisionally. TreeDolphin at 7, Sham at 5, myself at 6. Whoops. Wait, didn't mean to do that. There we go. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so provisionally, Sham at 5, me at 6, TreeDolphin at 7. Depending on how this next match goes, I could push this up. I could push it up to 5. Because like right now, even though I have a lot of respect for Sham's lineup, right now the record shows that it is underperforming. So like I could potentially put it at 6. I just like their lineup a lot more than I like mine's. For TreeDolphins, if it is performing at a 2-3 record, I'm gonna want to push it lower. But if it's defying my expectations of what it can do as a team, that's something that I would easily imagine pushing above myself and Sham. You think me over Trim? Which for because it relies on, well, like, so I agree. I agree that like it is very centralized on Dondozo performing well. I also believe if you lose, you're 8. I don't think you're 8. If you lose, I think you're still 7. I think you're still 7. Like, still better than 8. But I do want to see a win before I push it up further. But yeah, like I get what you're saying, because like again, it's a draft league. You know, make that a quote and put it on a shirt. You know, just because you can prep for the whole matchup, it is quote unquote easier to counter Dondozo, since you can specialize towards it instead of having to prepare for general matchups like at an actual competition and then just have a potential Dondozo check waiting waiting in the wings, right? The problem is they can also counter prep with the Dondozo based on what you have on your team. I'll take my buddy over here, Sonido, for example. Oh, he stopped streaming. No. Anyway, take my buddy Sonido, for example. He just finished, I think, finals in a separate draft league. He was doing pretty well. He had a Bats Caliber team that was popping off. It was like Murkrow and Bats Caliber. And his final opponent was actually a Dondozo user. They had Dondozo Tatsugiri. I'd have to find like the specific lineup that they had. And he hyper prepped for Dondozo. I'm talking like we were talking about it. I'm like, here's how you can handle Dondozo easily with what you have, but make sure that you count for all these other matchups at the same time. But he had Gallade. So I was like, hey, remember you have Gallade with a Leaf Blade and Sacred Sword, so that's one way you can deal with it. He had some weird scheme with Gardevoir. It had Will-O-Wisp, it had Skill Swap, it had Mirror Herb, and he had like Psyking next to it, so he could Skill Swap the Truant away from Psyking. Like he went all out with prepping for Dondozo. You know, I hate Gallade, but Gallade is a little bit underrated, at least in draft league. All that's come to say, just before that round, that same Dondozo player was up against someone else who had Skill Swap, and he prepped for that by using Ability Shield, so they couldn't Skill Swap the Unaware away from Dondozo. And for the matchup against Sonido, they decided to go, instead of Commander Tatsugiri, Storm Drain Tatsugiri. So the Vaporeon that he brought along that had Haze was completely nullified, and he had a hard time getting past that. So yeah, I'm just saying, like, I get what you're going for here, where like, yes, Dondozo, we have counterplay too, and in a draft league, we can focus towards that. It's just that because your opponent can also do that too. So Dondozo Tatsugiri is still pretty scary. It's hard for me to rate my team over this one because they have such a simple game plan that can still just be effective, especially with Gothorita in the mix. Whereas mine needs well, for one thing, it needs me to have the ability to run Tailwind plus Make It Rain and be confident in it, which is just, again, a personal issue. On paper though, like it, you know, it looks definitely solid. I can agree. Just this is not a team issue, it's a skill issue. That is all. You should watch me versus Umby. Yeah, I fell for the revival blessing. That's my bad. That's my bad. You gotta beat Quaylectra to prove me wrong. Quite literally. I mean, like, if my opinion is of any value, that's all I'm looking at right now. That is mainly what I'm looking at, because like so far you've shown to be like you're actually prepping and thinking about the drafts in the middle of battle, like, you know, slouch, right? That is like, just on paper the team just doesn't look the most amazing, but again, if like you're defying all expectations and getting a good record with said team, that says a lot about you as a player, and that offsets anything that I could ever think about the team on paper. And I would be more than glad to like shift this from 7 up to a 5 if you've won that matchup. But if it's performing, you know, just as expected, then it still feels on the lower end of the spectrum for me. Is Hydreigon offensive or support for me? Both. A little bit of both. Obviously matchup dependent. I like the fact that I can do like AV Snarl if I really want to, but well, there's the easy way to answer this. I'll say both. I will definitely say both, because if I go with this team where I do like Hydreigon, Cerulege, Gyarados, Hydreigon is very likely my Terra target, and I'm probably trying to Terra defensively, not offensively. However, it's still suiting the purpose where I want it to retain the high special attack stat that I'd be missing from not having the Gold Dingo. So I'm still trying to put it in offensive position. So even if I ran like an AV set, I'm really just trying to switch in defensively so I can bust out a strong Draco Meteor. Does that make sense? Also, I just like the flexibility that it has. Like I can, if I just want to use Snarl, I run it bulky. If I want to run Focus Energy, I hate Focus Energy so much, dude. If I just want to run an offensive, I can. I think I like the flexibility that I can choose how I want to use it in any particular matchup. I'm being restrained with my words because of upcoming matchups. And I know I said like, yeah, I'm willing to give out all the secrets, but only because I just picked up these Pokemon, I don't want to give away all of mine. But I think like a lot of these will be a lot of what this combination will do is very apparent. Goldingo is like a Dozo where it's really good on ladder, but on draft you over prepare for it. I've noticed that, and I expected that. I just didn't know how to take advantage of that with my own lineup. I'm like, you know what? Everybody's gonna see Goldingo on my team, and they're gonna like have some type of move to just deal with it. If they don't naturally have one already, like with your King Gambit, right? And I was like, you know what? One way I can trip people up is just by not using Goldingo, so that was also on my mind. But at the same time, it's like, man, if I'm not using Goldingo, what's the point? Like, it's literally the strongest mon on my team, and everybody else is falling short. So that just felt really bad. It just had to be. Felt like I just had to make a shake up for everything to make sense. Okay, so that's where we're at. You know, I've talked a little bit about why I initially ranked everyone's teams a certain way, or most people's teams, why I currently rank them a certain way, and here are your current standings until Quaylectra and TreeDolphin fight. And you know what? How does this compare? So Ryu is doing just about, or a little bit better than what I imagined that they would do. Just because I said that even though I'm placing this at number 2, it's just because I'm looking at Don Dozo and I hate that thing. But that it was potential for being number 1, and here it is currently at number 1 here after week 5. Darkbadger's team, I've seen a little bit of the light. I mean, we talked about how there's a little bit of randomness to it, but I do think there's more to it than meets the eye. And just matching it up with your performance, I don't mind giving it a number 2, even with some of the quote unquote randomness. So a huge shift from my initial impression, just because I thought it was going for a little bit of cheese. KeystoneRecords, you're staying right where you are. I still have high respect for the lineup. You're doing pretty solid so far, and the standings show it. So I think that's a perfect call right there. TreeDolphin, you are I ranked you at number 8. You gave me grief for it, so I pushed you up. I'm willing to push you up further once you finish your week, because at that point I think you're still at number 4 in the standings if you do that. So you'll have gone past expectations. Eltrim, initially rated at number 1, currently 5 in the standings. Yeah, because you win the head-to-head versus me, so you're number 5. Provisionally, we still gotta wait for TreeDolphin's match. Because of all we've talked a lot about it, and even Darkbadger mentioned that like a lot of the onus is on Don Dozo to do well, and people can kind of prep towards it, which makes it not as big as an issue as it normally is. So the current standing is underperforming based on what we expected. So, but I still think it's just by virtue of those 2 Pokemon alone, it's got to be within the top 4, at least for me. We could probably set another point and then see how the standings end up, and then go from there. I'm probably not going to do this again, but we'll see. Myself, I am underperforming, and I think my current rank matches my current standing, but definitely doesn't match the initial rank that I gave myself. Hopefully my new team will be a contender for top 4, but we'll see. Quaylectra's team, I thought the Torkoal plus Oranguru would make some would cause some more damage, because I think it's, if you don't stop the Trick Room, it's just hard to stop in any case, in which case Torkoal runs away with the game. But everyone's been shown that they're able to deal with the initial setup, and there's not a lot that just comes behind it. It's like once Torkoal Oranguru is done, like the team's done. So far I'm willing to put that at the bottom of the standings. And then Sham, initially at number 6. I'm only shooting it up to number 5 because Quaylectra I'm putting at the bottom of the standings between myself and TreeDolphin. Provisionally, I can shift some things around in that area, but I still have respect for the general lineup. I just think it has some issues that are hard to work around. However, the pickup on Baxcalibur, I think, may be a much needed shift. We'll have to see how it actually plays out, though. So yeah, those are your rankings. Let me know if you agree with them. I'm not gonna cut this. I'll probably put in timestamps as usual if you guys want, but I'm just gonna upload this one raw to YouTube when I get a chance. Yeah, definitely let me know if you guys agree, for all that you stopped by. I appreciate it. I am gonna shut down here. I was planning on watching Sonido some more in this tour, but that's not panning out. So I'll just go ahead and sign off for now. Anyone from the draft league, I'll hit you guys up in chat if you want to talk more about it.